Welcome to the All Access Entertainment Podcast. I am your host, Joseph Bruen, and here this week, a guest that I've wanted for a while now. We were able to work things out. Very excited about this. An OG collector, per se, especially when it comes to promotional photos. So very excited about this chat. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Ron Lafond, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Pleasure to have you here. And, let's kind of go back to the beginning for you, like we do with every guest. Growing up as a child or a young adult, when did you first discover pro wrestling? Who were some of your favorites?
Yeah, so I started back when I was 8. I remember when we first got cable. I'm in my 50s, so cable was brand new coming on. When we got it, it was WTBS at 6:05 and watching the old NWA. That's how I got my initial start. And I was, I'd watch it every chance I could. Dusty Nikita was one of my favorites. So I'm looking forward to him at the convention in May. And so I watched it from there. And then I didn't get into the WWF until after WrestleMania 1, just after WrestleMania 1. And then that kind of changed everything on my collecting. Up in the North, we didn't get much merchandise for NWA, so it was like I'm in Vermont, it was very limited even on any wrestling at all merchandise, so grab whatever I could, and that's where I really took off my collecting from the time I was 10 all the way up through till now. I've collected everything I possibly could. I've sold quite a bit through the years, but the promos I've kept from the time I started, which was in the 90s.
So have promos basically been your favorite piece of collectible?
Yeah. As I got older, it was action figures. Like I was, the 40-year-old virgin version when I was a kid. Like I'd get action figures. I didn't play with them. I, displayed them. That was it. I did that all the way, forever. The promos, when I started getting those, it was like a light that went off with just the different imaging that was put onto them, how they portrayed the different wrestlers and all that. And when I started really getting into it, it's hard to get rid of them because like the memories of getting them autographed and how I got them and all that are like almost they're fresh in your mind when you start going through them. And go in and out with collecting through the years. Just as with everything else, as you get older, you starting to work, starting a family, you end up starting to, deviate away from the collecting part. But I always kept everything until I had my kids. I have 2 kids. And then through the years, as we wanted to go on vacations and they needed things and stuff like that, I started selling off. The one thing I could never sell was the pictures. I always told them, like, that's the last thing that goes. We have to lose everything before I start selling those off. And and that's the way it's been. Like I don't collect much action figures. I don't collect anything else, but the promos I still jump into.
I've kind of been the same way, and over the years I've had to get rid of a lot of my collections just due to different things going on in life. And there's probably a good handful, maybe 20 that I've always kept. So I've had them throughout every collection, which has been great. And those kind of mean the most to me. But like you said, it is very difficult to get rid of certain things when you have attachments like, the memories of them signing it or whatever it may be. And I've let go literally thousands of promo photos over the years. But very happy to be in the position that I'm in and very happy to be, back into it. Not as crazy as I once was into it, but I was at the point at one point where I had to get every single promo photo. I was kind of trying to be a completist in a world where you can't be a completist. Exactly. And if there was a variant, if there was a different year stamp or something, like that was me trying to get every single version. And it's fun, and the hunt is fun, but it's just a little overwhelming. It kind of takes a toll,
Yeah, it does. And and I was the same way. I went, once when the pandemic hit, like that changed everything. Like I didn't know there was a whole community out there that collected the promos, and so like that opened up a whole world of trading, collecting, buying, doing the virtual sign. Like it opened up so much. And for me with the promos, I can remember, from the time I was young, my father bringing me to wrestling matches, and us going to WrestleManias and going to the fan access. And now that, I have my son, we go to these now, and, he doesn't know everything about the wrestlers from, I'm like late 80s, early 90s, is where my fandom really took off. He doesn't really know them. He knows who they are because we do watch some of the old stuff, but he just enjoys meeting these superstars and meeting and getting their autographs and getting pictures with them, and doing all that. So all the way through, I can go through my collection and be like, I know where I was with that. I know where I was with this. And, going back to, the very first promo that I've got, I know where I was, who I was with, the situation behind it, which, it's hard to let those go.
Yeah. And so the beginning of COVID, is that your first interaction with any other OG promo collectors? Was there ever anybody before that?
No, it was, I never shared my collection with anybody. Like I had like a little room in my basement, like everything just went into, but I never even ventured out to look for others that did this. So yeah, during that time, Zachary Mumbles, he purchased some, match cards off me from eBay, and he hit me up on the side, and we started talking, and then he introduced me to, brought me in with you, Joe, and Andrew Kala from Auction Andrew, and that just snowballed. David Speck and Nick Christie and all of that, where I started like, you know, kind of went like made up for lost time during those couple of years of purchasing tons of promos and trading and selling and all that stuff. So that's kind of where it's reignited. Like once I started flipping through the photos, I was like, oh my god, I like just the memories flooded back, and it was hard to. And like you, I was like, I want to get every single one I can find, but then you're like, all right, I think I'm good, and then you see like another slew of promos come out, and you're like, I didn't even know they made one of this guy. And so it's very hard to do that. And I'm more now of, I mean, you've dealt with me in the trading and buying and selling. I look for the deals. If I can't get a really good deal, I'm good with not having every single one. So it's more of collecting the folks that I like, um, or if there's something coming up where there's an event where they're going to be signing, of getting something I can get them to sign. That's what means the most right now.
So you popped up at a time, during COVID where a lot of collectors popped up, but you popped up already being an OG collector. You were already in the game for years, like you
Yeah.
said, but you kind of kept it private. Whereas during COVID, there were so many new collectors that popped up to, join the world of promo collecting, and they're already gone. They're already out. They've already sold off their collections. And I feel like a lot of people kind of joined in, maybe thinking that they could, I don't know, flip the stuff so that way, make some extra cash. But you kind of got to see who was the true collector and who was in it just for that.
Yeah. Yeah. And, that was always the hard thing, right? Like when I started going back, I was like, oh, like if we can get this, I've seen it selling for this much, and I can. But as soon as I get it in hand, it's hard to let it go. It's like I got it now, and I've sold some that as soon as I did it, I was like, man, I shouldn't have sold that one. And luckily, I was able to get the majority of them back through trades and outright purchases and stuff. But yeah, it's difficult when you're like a true fan to be like, yeah, I can let that go. And I've been offered a lot for some of my promos, and I was like, I'm like, I don't need it. I'm not ready to let it go, so I'd rather hang on to it. And I've gone through prior to that surge of collecting where I look back now, and if I would have kept the extras that I had, extra Brian Pillman signed promos, all these guys, Rock, all that, could have had a nice little side thing going. But sold the Brian Pillman from WrestleMania 13 for $75, and I thought that was a lot of money, back in the day when I sold it. And like now you see what they go for, and you're like, man, if I would have held on to it. But that was an extra one that I had, and just trying to clean up and clean things out to get the collection in order. I was like, yeah, I can get rid of this. But yeah, it was always hard to find the true collectors when I first started, and the ones that were just trying to flip something when they got it. And I've dealt with just very few in the larger community. I've bought stuff here and there, but most of it I've pretty much stayed with kind of like the heavy hitters that are in it. You, Andrew, Zach. Those are the ones that I stay with, of doing the even purchasing. I try not to purchase outside into a larger group, because you never know what you're going to get. Um, it could be advertised as one, you get it, and you're like, that's not at all what this is. And so I, not just getting into it, there wasn't like a lot of the older promos that I really wanted. I grabbed them when I could, but nothing that I really wanted. So, and collecting them through the early 2000s, when they were, you could buy, it was almost like a subscription. Every month there'd be like 10 of them that came out, and, Maniac Joe. And I can't remember the guy's name, um, from New York, that somehow would always have them, and he'd sell them like $5 a piece. So you'd be like, all right, I want one of each for this month. And
Was that Jeff Fernia, JBK's?
no, Mancuso, I think it was. I can't remember his first name. But he was out of New York, and every month I would see he would send something out and be like, all right, give me one of each, and it'd be like, $20, and you'd get all the promos. So and some of them, during like the Attitude Era, not the Attitude Era and beyond, were like, weren't anybody that I was like, oh my god, I really need to get this promo. But I ended up being like, I want to get every P number. And then it just became insane to be able to pull that off, because you never knew. I have some that are the same P number, different wrestlers, different years, and that was like, oh, how do you function in that when you're trying to be a completist, and it's nearly impossible. So I kind of pulled back from that, and focus on the years that I like. Up until like 97 is when it was like, those are the guys that I remember, growing up with and all of that.
Yeah, for me personally, when I first started collecting, it was Dave Korn. He was an eBay guy, and he had all originals. And Jeff Fernia, I believe was his name, who ran JBK's. And JBK's would often have photo files and WWF promos from that specific era, not so much vintage stuff, but stuff that was coming out in '03, '04, '05, and he would have them for only maybe $5 each.
Yeah.
So you just stock up on these things. And and even some of those nowadays have become a little harder to get. Got, Highlanders, Gemini, things like that. Like, they used to be $5, but now they're $20 to $30, and that's if you can find them. You know what I mean? It sounds strange, but even to find a Gemini promo photo sometimes could take 2 years if you're a collector. You know what I mean? And it's just the way things have kind of come. And there are a lot of collectors now, a lot of newer collectors that are always kind of like, oh, there's no value anymore in the promos. Everything's dropped off. But it's really not true if you're comparing it to when we started, where you could get promos for so cheap. And now they actually are getting proper money. I remember there was an Andre the Giant. It was an original, and it was signed on eBay. And I bid on it. And it was probably, I don't know, maybe 2005 or something, maybe a little later. And I lost it by 50 cents because the auction ended overnight, and I just couldn't stay up. I was tired from work, and I was like, I kind of threw a Hail Mary out there, and I ended up losing it by 50 cents. It sold for $150 something for a signed Andre the Giant, which would now be 6,000 or more, and just to see that value, I had the Rocky Maivia debut promo. There are two versions of it, the 96 stamp and the 97 stamp. I had the 96, and it was signed Rocky Maivia, the full signature. And I sold that in 2011 for $300. And I thought that was crazy that somebody was willing to spend $300. So that's why I got rid of it. And at that time, you weren't looking at promos as being as rare as we've come to learn. So I was like, yeah, I'll find another one. And I didn't, enough for that price anyway. And so, yeah, $300, a debut Rocky Maivia signed. And now you see them go for, 1,500 or whatever it may be.
Yeah, it's amazing how much they've increased, and you know, not being immersed into the promo community, not knowing how rare some of these are, and how I've got the Terry Funk and Flash Funk promo, um, like that one. I was like, I picked it up because I like those unique imaging.
Yeah.
You know, they have one from I think it's '87 with Paul Orndorff and Oliver Humperdinck.
Yes.
Just those odd pairings of wrestlers in one photo always intrigue me. I love that kind of uniqueness of it. So I grabbed it up, not thinking anything of it, and during one point made a trade with Dave Sebek, and he got that one, and I was like, man, I never saw another one, right? And then so you kick yourself like, that was a real, I should have kept that one. And luckily, I was able to get it back with another trade. This time, it came back double signed with Terry Funk as well. So now I got that one dual signed in the trade with Dave, and that's the hard part. As soon as you let him go, you're like, it's not even the value, the money value. It's just that personal, like, man, I wish I would have held on to that one.
Right. And when you get rid of something like that, if it's that rare, chances are you're probably never going to see it
Yeah,
again.
yeah,
Obviously some of them come back around, but some of them don't.
yeah, and not even know. Like I was doing it, early on, where I can't even remember where I got them from. Was it eBay? Was it, I know I went to one of the Legends of the Rings back in the '90s, and it was uh, got the Sultan, Bob Backlund, and Iron Sheik. I got that one for maybe $5, maybe, because it
Wow.
was damaged in the corners, and I was like, that one I liked. Again, it was that picture that I liked, and snagged that one up. And you don't find those very often. Once in a while, you see another collector that has it, but they're not usually put out there for sale or anything
Yeah.
where you can grab them.
Yeah, the Sultan Chic Backlund promo I've seen maybe 3 or 4 times ever. And one of them, I don't know if you know Bobby Rydell.
I know the name. I've seen
He,
him.
he's an agent and a wrestling manager, and he's got one. Um, I've seen maybe 2 or 3 others over the years. That was it. I mean, that's a really rare promo, and it's kind of always gone for a good amount of money. You know what I mean? It's one of those tough ones to get. I've never been able to get my hands on that one.
Yeah. And again, when I first started out, I didn't know the difference between, original and a reprint and all that stuff. So as you go through and start really looking at them, you mentioned something. I think you were talking to Mike Ford on your podcast with him. I think it was him where you were saying the '80s smell.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so like I went and I grabbed one, and I was like, I know exactly what you're talking about. Cause I can, like, when you take it out of, like, I have all mine in a binder and in protective sheets. When you take them out, you can smell that smell. And you're like, and if you have a reprint, you can definitely tell that it's not the same.
Yeah.
And I was like, that is a great way to explain to somebody that doesn't understand, how can you tell if they're original or not of that? Like it's the chemicals that were used back then on those photos that just, it's still there today. Like you're opening up a figure out of like an '80s package, and you can smell the rubber from
Exactly.
LGM, something like that. It's like it's a unique smell that you can't really describe.
My wife will walk by the office and she'll see me like, smelling a promo randomly and come on, Joe, really? Like, hey, this is how you check, I know what I'm looking for. So I'm not a crazy person. Trust me. It's just funny, but so how did you navigate? I mean, obviously you mentioned that, but overall, how did you navigate? What are some of the other things that you kind of use to figure out a real promo from a fake over the years?
Yeah, it's kind of the feel to them as well, especially once they got into the '90s, when they went more to the card stock. They, I've had some really good reprints, and it's like very hard to tell. But if kind of like feeling cloth, you're rubbing it between your fingers, and you're like, something feels off. And if you look at the copyright and the P number, they're usually a little bit off for more crisp coloring than the originals. Just it could be just a little bit, in the same thing. If like us talking about it doesn't seem weird. If we were talking about it with people that weren't into collecting promo, they'd be like, "How could you tell that the black is off by just
Yeah.
a few hues than the normal one?" But as you do it more and more, you can start to really tell if they're real or not. And the tough one was like the 96 when you're starting to get some with the watermarks on the back. I'm like, are they real or are they not? And you start, it's more of that texture and really looking at those points for me of, do they match up with what I've seen with the other ones that I have?
Yeah. And for fans that are looking for that, when it comes to the watermark, they're primarily on black and white. You don't really see
Yeah.
watermark on color. So they're going to be black and white. They're usually, actually, they're always going to be the photos that are photo paper as opposed to the cardstock.
Yeah.
So they started in the late 80s with the watermark on the back, and it was only here and there, and it's always Kodak. That's another thing that fans need to realize, because Fujifilm, that's not a real promo photo. And there's so many on eBay. You look at it, because I'm there every day trying to just see if I can get a deal. And you see one, you're like, oh man, this could be original. And then they show the back of it and it says Fujifilm. You're like, oh,
Yeah.
not real. But they advertise it as real, because there's a lot of people that either are trying to pull a fast one, number one, or number two, they just don't have the knowledge and they think that it's real. But it specifically has to be Kodak when it comes to WWF watermarks. There's never been Fujifilm. And that went right into the 90s. So late 80s, especially the mid 90s, the new generation era, there are so many promos that have that Kodak,
Mhm.
on the back. Once you got into the late 90s, maybe 97, 98, there'd pretty much be none with a watermark. They would just be more, cardstock, and that was the end of it. But that's definitely something to look for collectors out there that are listening in now that, would like to know a little bit of the detail behind that. So also for you personally, when it comes to promo photos, what was your very first promo? I know you said you might not remember, but any memory of that?
I do. So my very first promo was Texas Tornado promo from the 90s. So went to um, a friend of mine moved out of state, and he wanted me to go visit. I think I was like 18, 17, 18. Went and visited him, and Kerry Von Erich was signing at an auto dealership before the matches. So we went and did that whole spiel. I had no idea that you could find these elsewhere. I thought they were only available when you went to these signings. Um, and that was my very first one. My very first one was a signed Texas Tornado Kerry Von Erich promo. Um, that you know, looking back now, not realizing what I had, it was just a moment in time to meet him, because he wasn't Intercontinental Champion yet. He just shown up, so it was uh, it was just a chance to go and meet a wrestler at a car dealership, and I held on to it all these years.
Mm.
Um, I always took care of the things that I got when it came to wrestling, because I collected everything. It's like went right into a sheet, and that's where it stayed for years. And I didn't look at them very often. And as I moved out of my parents and moved into my own place, started going through all my stuff, and I was like, oh yeah, you forget about things that you had. But yeah, that was my very first one. And then it just, I, I, I post a lot on the promo page, little stories here and there. And the next one that I got, or when I really started collecting, was after FanFest for WrestleMania 11 in Connecticut. I saw people walking around with all these promo photos. Like, man, where did they get all these? I was getting whatever they handed to you at the autograph table when they went. Um, so once I saw that, I was asking, where they got them. They're like, oh, they got them from here. They bought them from here. So that's when I really started really getting into it and buying them. And other than just going to, autograph sessions, I didn't get many up until that point. It was, I think Kerry Von Erich was my first. And then I had, when Jim Neidhart left, he had a bunch of original promos that he would bring around, and he did a couple wrestling events here in Vermont. And I was able to get one from him there. I didn't get one for myself. I got one for my sister, and she didn't take care of anything. And, a few years ago, my parents found it in the basement, and it's, it's all bent. It's not crumpled, but it's like, it's wavy. It was in the basement for, 30 years,
Wow.
that I still have that. So now I just got to find a place for Bret Hart to sign and get a dual sign. But, and we had, I have an original promo of Sherry Martel that she cut off all of the copyright in the WWE from
Hmm.
the bottom, when she left and was doing an autograph signing at our local fair, with Rick Martel. That was I was probably 19 at that point. And I was like, I know this is a real one, but there's no copyright on it, because you could tell. And, looking through it, you can see where it was cut. It's almost a straight cut, but there's a little wave to it. Um, and so I got Rick Martel, Sherry Martel, um, Jim Neidhart, and those were my first four up until WrestleMania 11.
Hmm. Yeah, for me personally, Texas Tornado, what a way to start for you. And for me, it was the Macho Man. 1991 was the first superstar I ever met. My mom took me to an Almax food festival, and it was at the Providence Civic Center. And basically, it was presented by Almax, but they had the kind of these makeshift aisles lined up on the arena floor, looking like a supermarket, and they were showcasing all of their products, everything that they carried, and everything was also available for sample. So they had a sample person at every station, and it was just a cool event. I think it was like $5. You go in, you try everything. They also gave you a little grab bag, and you can kind of take little take home samples of all the products. And I don't think we even knew that there was going to be a wrestler there. I don't remember that part of it. I was so young. Um, but then all of a sudden, there he is, Macho Man in full attire, signing autographs, and I was just like blown away. And we got on the line, and I met him, and that was the first person that I met. And it came on an 8.5 by 11. Uh, I call it advertisement. It's not necessarily a promo photo, but it is original. It's produced by the WWF, and it's an 8.5 by 11. It's card stock, and or more so like almost like a cardboard, but very cool piece. And have it to this day. To Joseph from the Macho Man Randy Savage. And from there, 91, the same year, I met the Bushwhackers. And 94, met the Bushwhackers again at one of those events. And then the fourth event was one other person. Oh, it was Texas Tornado. But I didn't get to meet him because we waited in line forever, and there was still a huge line. And I remember being very disappointed at the time, but I was kind of like, okay, I mean, it's fine. He at that time, I just kind of looked at him as really cool, be great to meet, but also kind of like a mid-level guy.
Mm-hmm.
I was younger, so I didn't understand the history that came with him. And then as I got older, I'm like, man, could have met the Texas Tornado. But
Yeah, he was when I met him, he was going through his troubles at that time. So I was like, it was pretty much no real interaction. It was just signed and you moved on. But yeah, he was, for me, I remember him from, I watched all wrestling when I could, and, traded tapes, early on, and watching him from Dallas days and all that. He was definitely, in the grand scheme, people don't really include him in, like, Mount Rushmore type stuff, but he's up there. If you talk about the regions, and, in that area, the Von Erichs were like huge
yeah,
everywhere.
yeah, he's wildly popular, and even the Von Erichs out here in New England were very popular. A lot of people had access to watching them. I didn't with the cable station that I had, so I didn't. I only got his WWF stuff, and that opportunity where I was waiting in line for him. That was in '92, so obviously that was the end of his run, basically. And there weren't many opportunities to meet guys like that. So I definitely encourage the fans, if you get a moment, get in those lines, try to stay in those lines. I know they're long sometimes. I waited for Shawn Michaels for 5 hours,
Wow.
and last minute they said that he was going to be late or he missed his flight or something. So they took the Shawn sign down, and they said, "Don't worry, not one but two superstars will be replacing Shawn." I saw, this is great. And then I see the limo pull up, and it was Sparky Plug and Duke the Dumpster, who I was a fan of at the time, but I'm like, man, that's
That's
not Shawn Michaels. Very disappointing. But But my first official promo was Bret Hart, 1995. Might have been 94, but I got it in 95, and it was an original Bret Hart promo, and it was signed. My mom had mailed a letter to the WWF for my birthday, looking to get something signed, and they sent a Bret Hart promo, and it was authentic, and that was my very first official original promo photo. So definitely cool story with that. And what were some of the other early ones that you got?
Yeah, so after when I like, oh my, we can buy these things. I got into it. It was the Yokozuna Mr. Fuji promo.
Yes.
That was the first one that I purchased in my collection, and after that, it was like just I was on eBay all the time, buying them here and there, and buying them the newer ones as they were coming out. It was an influx of everything, and through the year, I got right now just WWF promos, the from 84 till 2008 when they stopped. I got a little over almost 1,600 of them with those that I've got. But yeah, and a good portion. I got a lot that are signed because like you said, if you ever get a chance in your town, if they're going to whatever, they don't do it as much as they used to when I was growing up. We had a Walmart open here. We had Mick Foley. We had Steven Regal show up. Like, just ones that you'd go in and nobody would be sitting there with them. So you'd go up and you could have conversations and get multiple things signed and all
Yeah.
of that. So, back in the early 90s is when it was really big here in where they bring in a lot of the older superstars, Jake the Snake, at our local fair one year, they had King Kong Bundy, Jake the Snake, Rock and Roll Express, Bushwhackers, like you name it, they were here. George Steele, um, that, you had the meet and greet before, and it was like, maybe 100 people that were waiting in line, which is nothing nowadays. Now you go and, like you said, you waited 5 hours for Shawn Michaels, and I attend different comic cons and stuff like that with my son now, and we stand sometimes 5-6 hours for somebody, and nobody that I would stand in that line for, but my son was like, I got to meet him. And so we go and we stand, and, different actors and whatnot. But it's, if anybody has a chance to go out and do that, like that is the best way other than Axxess, where I think Axxess kind of took the Fan Fest version of it. The first one I went to in 11 for WrestleMania 11 was like unbelievable. Like you'd go in, like you'd be walking around on the convention floor and you'd be bumping into, I bumped into Jimmy Del Rey and we had a conversation, or you're just walking around with all of them because it wasn't to the level that it is now, which was nice for interactions with it. Right. I met Jack Tunney standing in the corner of Doink the Clown's dunk tank, just standing there watching and nobody up to him. Going up, having the conversation, and getting a photo with him, and having him sign, a piece of paper because there was nothing else for him. Like those were the fun times for me. And I went up through, I went to all the WrestleManias up and through 20 except for 19. Um, and everyone got a little less and less with those fan fests, where it'd be like, oh, it's bagels and biceps, or where it's just like an assembly line to go through. But those are the fun times. These little one-off, places where you can go and meet them at, like one person's at like a card shop or something like that, because
Yeah.
you don't get thousands of people there, and you get more of a moment, I think, when you do that.
Absolutely. Yeah. 95. I mean, I met Ahmed Johnson at Bob's stores, went back to Bob's maybe half a year later, met Jerry the King Lawler there, and he was a heel at the time. So it was unique to meet a heel. At that time, they just didn't really sign as often. I remember going to Building 19. I met the 123 Kid and Savio Vega. Bret Hart was at Building 19. And all of these signings were free. Back then they were
Yeah.
100% free. Um, so yeah, I definitely miss those times. Why don't you walk us in detail through your day? Because I feel like not enough people talk about it, or there aren't enough people that I know that have been there. You were there, like you said, for WrestleMania 11 Fan Fest. That was the second fan festival with the WWF. Obviously, it was still a mom and pop organization, like you mentioned. So It was just, very down to earth, very at ease. But walk us through that whole day as far as what you can remember, getting there and first going in and everything that you saw inside.
Yeah, like that was a gift for me to go to that, from my parents. And you go, and it's set up in a mall, so where the convention center was, so kind of unique. And you go down these escalators to the convention center, and you're not really knowing what to expect because you're standing in line. Everybody's, when you first go in, it's like, oh, there's a ton of people. But once you got inside, it was pretty open on what you could do. And whatever you could imagine, they had, like I said earlier, they had Doink the Clown dunk tank. They had Bob Holly's race car in the middle of the place where he was standing, signing autographs, taking pictures. Alundra Blaze, her motorcycle that she rode. Remember that poster in '95 in the WWF magazine? They had that there, so she was taking photos and signing autographs. The Heartbreak Kids interview show that he had.
Oh, the Heartbreak Hotel.
Yeah, they had the bed set up and all that in the middle. They had a ring set up that you could get into and kind of bounce around. Wasn't the real ring. It was like a foam pit that kids could go in. And then all around they had different tables set up for autographs. They had the funeral parlor set up. They had a, a table set up where Bret Hart and Jerry King Lawler would come out at different times and draw. So you could watch them draw as you're walking through. And so that was a lot of it. And then they had all of the vendors that they had there were all for WWE licensed products. So Coliseum Video, like they were selling those things $5 a pop for the videos, brand new, sealed, all that stuff.
Now, why do you
That
think they were so cheap at that time? Because if you bought them when they came out, they were like 40.
Yeah. That was when they were starting to move away a little bit, like with the clamshells and all that. So these were like older tapes.
Ah,
They weren't pushing the newer ones so much. So these were like, the
going through the back
clamshell.
stock.
Yeah. So by the end of the day, they were selling them, you could get 10 for like $20. It was like, at one point I had every single Coliseum Video one. And, cause most of them I bought during that fan fest.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So as you didn't have to, there was no purchasing anything. Once you got in, you purchased the ticket to Axxess, fan fest. Everything else in there was free except for the vendor tables. So you could walk around, hop in line, wait for things to go through, all of that. That was pretty much my day. I was just going around the line because they would change on a regular basis. So like it wasn't like 4 hours, or it was literally like an hour for somebody here, hour for somebody there.
Oh, so they didn't each have their own, permanent section.
No, they would bounce around. So, like Undertaker was the first my only time meeting him in full costume. The purple and the black, and he sat there. That was, didn't say anything. He literally just sat there. Could have been a cardboard cutout, but that was cool at that point. He was really getting hot, and seeing him do all that, and going through Razor Ramon, met him there. Diesel, Lex Luger, Davey Boy Smith. It was like they were having all the big names, there that you could go up and meet. And then they had like some of the older legends just walking around the floor. Arnie Skoland, and like I said, Jack Tunney, Steve Lombardi was walking around when he wasn't doing the dunk tank, and Harvey Whippleman, Atom Bomb. Like you were walking around and you were just bumping into these legends, and you're just like, oh my god, like they were going around just enjoying the atmosphere and talking with fans and seeing what everybody was doing. So
Plus,
that
the
that
Hall
was
of Fame section too, right?
that one. They did. Yes, they did. They had Gorilla Monsoon, Freddie Blassie, Arnie Skoland, and
Chief J.
Chief J. They would rotate in and out. So I was able to get all of those on the FanFest program that they had with
What were those interactions like with them?
all. I can tell you there hasn't been many throughout all my years doing it that I've had a bad interaction with anybody. The legends were really cool. So Freddie Blassie was cool. I had an old picture of him with Hulk Hogan when he managed Hulk Hogan from, early 80s and the 70s. And he made some comment about Hogan and then signed right over Hogan's face. So they were having fun with it as well, and interacting with everybody and enjoying what you brought for them to sign, because sometimes they don't see all the stuff. So seeing a young fan that's bringing up a picture of him from before they could probably walk or talk, and asking them to sign it, and all that stuff. They seem to enjoy being around everybody, and that whole day, like meeting all the big names at the time: Diesel, Razor, Sean, Brat, Taker. They were all, none of them were felt like it was a hindrance to them to be there. They were enjoying interacting with the fans, and I felt that way through most of the things that I went to through the time. You'd always have one or two when you get into the assembly line that they've been doing it for 5 hours and done, sick and tired writing their name. But that day was good. I went to all the sessions. So I think they had 5 or 6 sessions. They break them up in hours that you could go, and everything would change through it. So they would do, Shawn Michaels would do his interview thing, and so you'd bounce around to all these different things all day, and it was a full day, to see everything and take everything in, and
Now,
you
if you
know
bought all the sessions, did you get to stay in there, or did you have to keep leaving and coming back?
you could stay in. So if you had a ticket for the next one, they'd move you off the floor, but you didn't have to go out with everybody that was already lined up to start your
No.
process over again. They leave you at the front so you could go in, get into everything else as it was going, as they restocked and resituated everything and all that. That was the first time that I saw Shane McMahon's wife. She was working there, at Razor Ramon's table. She was letting people up because they had the wrestlers on a high rise. So when they came in, everybody could see them on the floor. So when you were getting their autograph, you have to walk up some stairs on a platform, and she was handling that stage over there. Linda McMahon was managing Diesel, at his booth. So back then you didn't know who these folks were, so you're just like, oh, okay, whatever. And then as you see through the years of all this stuff, you're like, oh, holy, like I saw Linda McMahon in '95, and
Yeah.
all that stuff. So it was a really cool, um, in, environment to be in, because there were a lot of people there, but you weren't crammed in where you were like walking like cattle through, baby steps through.
If you
You
had to guess, how many people would you say there were there?
um,
Just a guesstimate.
Each individual session, I would say there. I bet you it was less than 1,000,
Wow.
in there. And that's each session, people coming and going. Back in '95, it wasn't like hugely popular like
Yeah.
today or the early parts. So it was kind of like a Hail Mary to keep doing it, because they did it at 10. And that's why I decided I'm like, I really want to go to, even if I don't go to the matches, I want to go to this fan fest. And seeing everything they did at 10, you're like, oh, that looked cool, because they did the videos after the fact and all that, and watching the wrestlers hanging out with their fans and whatnot. So it was that was probably the best one that I went to, and it's probably because it was the first time that I went, and everything was like all new and fresh and all that. But it was 11 was a little different. It was more of individual meet and greets in, with the travel club.
Hmm.
It wasn't like they didn't have like a big fan fest for it. It was, um, they sent you to Disney, and walking around Disney, it was like Austin and Duke the Dumpster, and everybody just kind of walking around doing their thing in there. So it was hard. It didn't really get to meet anybody from there, because that's a massive place. So it's not like they had it set up anywhere. It was just, you could run into them. But yeah, 11 was good, and the other accesses, they were good too. I mean, they rotated people out, but if you stood in line for 3 hours thinking you were going to meet one of the superstars you really wanted to meet, and then by the time you get up, it's Gilbert. It's like
Yeah.
you're waiting for Kevin Nash and Scott Hall, and you're like, whoa, well, this isn't really what I was standing here for.
Yeah.
So, um, so they got a little bit larger in that aspect where that one you could feel how many people were in there. It was, thousands at a time, and you were standing in line and just trying to get to a spot where you could just take a breath away from everything was harder.
2013, I went to Axxess. That was the year WrestleMania was at MetLife, New Jersey, and that Axxess was in an arena, and it was around the whole concourse, upper level. There were different stations, and you could, meet some of the superstars. They had lines, they had queues set up. They had the Andre statue. They had a lot of memorabilia on mannequins, which was really cool. Shawn Michaels and Undertaker. Then you can go to the arena floor, if I remember correctly, too. And they had some other lines down there. But I remember waiting in line specifically for Mil Mascaras. I was so happy that he was there. One of the superstars to this day that I have never met, Mil Mascaras. And I was a vendor at Legends of the Ring selling merchandise, and Mil Mascaras was literally 2 tables away. And I was like, I'm going to meet him before I leave today. Well, he left before I was done doing my vendor thing. So I missed out. So this was my opportunity. WrestleMania Axxess, there he is. I'm like, oh my God. So I get in line immediately. There's only maybe 30 people in front of me. I'm like, this is beautiful. We're getting there. All of a sudden there's maybe 6 people in front of me. Boom, they pull Mil Mascaras out. They put Harley Race in. Now, obviously, Harley's great, but Harley had just worked for me that year. So I've already worked with Harley Race. Still a cool opportunity, but once again missed out on Mil Mascaras. So to this day, he is the one that I'm hunting down. And I hear that, maybe he's not the best to deal with when it comes to signing autographs and stuff, but I don't care. I just want to get a picture with him. Always a fan as a kid, and hopefully someday that will happen. But so you mentioned different stations at that WrestleMania Axxess, the Coliseum home video. Was there a WWF Hasbro station figures?
There wasn't a Hasbro one there. They That was when Pogs were big.
Okay.
The little that was everywhere. They had you could play. Like I didn't really understand it. I collected them like there. They were selling like full sheets of the Pogs, and the they did a WrestleMania 11 mat that they use that you use to slam all that stuff. That I did buy. That I got signed by Owen Hart, Jeff Jarrett, Diesel, and the Roadie. Um, uh, and back then, before paint pens were like a real thing, you'd buy like they were true paint pens. You bought them in like the hobby store for like models, and do that. I got one of those, and it exploded when Owen Hart was signing it. So on the back of it, I have Owen Hart's thumbprint.
Oh, wow. That's cool. That's a good memory.
Yeah.
So I remember the video package for the very first Fan Fest, which was WrestleMania 10, and they showed Mike Chioda in a real ring, and they would have fans in sumo suits. That was one of the things there. They had the dunk tank there as well. They had the Hasbro figure vendor there with all the Hasbros on display. They also had the commentary station. Were any of those brought back for WrestleMania 11?
Not the sumo. They had the ring. They changed it to a foam pit so you could jump off the ropes and into that and all that. They did the Hasbros. No. What was the other one you mentioned?
The sumo suits for.
Yep. No, they didn't have those. The commentary table they did have. They did that for a long time through all the Fan Fest and Axxess and all
Yeah.
that. They always had that. They usually have, like Jonathan Coachman was one there. Howard Finkel was there at one point that you could call a match with them. That was kind of cool. So yeah, they changed things up here and there throughout it, which is nice if people are going back over and over again. You're not doing the same thing. But yeah, the Hasbro thing was, I wish they would have had the Hasbro there. I was a huge Hasbro collector back in the day, and all of that, and the KB toys for 3 for $10 and
Yeah.
all that. Yeah.
And 95 is known to be probably the rarest year for merchandise. There was a lot of rare stuff that now you just can't get your hands on it. And if you do, it's 600, 800 or more. Now, was there a merchandise booth at that where you could buy the atom bomb footballs and the blow up blimps and all of that stuff?
Yeah, they were. It was they had all the T-shirts, the Diesel glove, the Sean glasses, and the hat that he was wearing at the time. And they were selling off LT merchandise, so the LT football with the WrestleMania 11 logo on it, and his his promo photo for WrestleMania 11, not the black and white one,
Yeah, the
the
color.
colored version one. They were selling that. Thinking back, you wish you would, you know,
Stock
think
up.
like buy a couple more than what you did. But back then, you would purchase, a photo for $10. You were like, I really don't need two for anything, so you like I want to save it for something else, and so yeah, they had all of that stuff, the posters, all that stuff that was available to everybody to buy, and it was they would start discounting stuff as the sessions would start ending to get
Yeah.
more people to purchase that stuff. So people could get a lot of cool things, but at least for me back then, like I said, I always collected, so I knew I was going to like preserve it for a while. But most of it was kids, so kids were like throwing the footballs around and all that stuff, and I'm sure the Nerf balls didn't last very long once they got home.
Right. Yeah. In hindsight, I would have stocked up on the atom bomb footballs and the blow up blimps because those things are like 600 or more per piece.
Yeah,
Crazy. So hard to come by. But let's talk about real quick the lost art of managers in pro wrestling. There's so many colorful managers in the 80s and the 90s. How do you feel about the transition of that, where they've kind of gone by the wayside, and it's almost like the last batch of managers, Armando Estrada and like people from that era, if they were getting over, it's WWE didn't want that, so they would
yeah.
kind of pull the reins back, and they don't want them shining. And now you don't really see it as much. Obviously, Paul Heyman, there's a couple, but not like before.
Yeah, I always liked the managers. I think they add, especially at a live event, right? They added so much to the crowd with that interaction. In the 80s and early 90s, it wasn't like this go 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 mentality in the ring. It was you had the rest holds, you had the arm bars and all that stuff. So you always had them on the outside antagonizing for the bad guys, and trying to get you to root for the good guys, on whatever side they were on. So I think that it misses it, but they're not doing as many live events in that realm where it's I don't think it's needed as much. And it kind of falls in line with, like you were saying, once you start getting over, they don't want you anymore. Same thing with the tag teams. I always loved the tag teams. I always gravitated to that because I just thought there was more to it. Um, but as soon as you see a team start to get over, it's gone. They did just recently AJ Lee and Dragon Lee, like that was starting to get some traction on TV and all that, and now they're gone. They transitioned that out. So it I don't understand that thought process. I do think they add, especially to some of the guys that have a hard time doing a promo, of getting them more time other than just in the ring, because I think that sold. I hear you talk all the time about the little boxes in the corner when you're doing it. That's what made you excited for the next week. That's
Yeah.
because back then it was the enhancement guys and a superstar, so it wasn't like wasn't a super competitive match where you're like, who's going to win. You knew who was coming down to the ring, who was going to go over on that match. But it was that additional talking and you know vignettes that brought you to, right. I remember that's how I first saw Tully and Arn were coming to the WWE, when they popped up in
Yeah.
one of the little boxes on the screen. So I think I think it does miss something, but I think the way they operate now, without all the um, live shows and the house shows, non-televised, whatever you want to call them, I don't think there's no need for it, because it's so in your face, right? They're so quick that there's not a time for the manager to really engage in the crowd or with the other
Yeah.
opponent or anything.
I used to love the live event specific ads that you would get in each area. So here in Providence, we'd get one for the Tour de Force, and Razor Ramon would cut a promo with the backdrop behind him, and he'd specifically say, I'm coming to Providence, Rhode Island. And, I used to love watching those. I mean, they were just so unique and so cool. And that's another thing we've lost. And it's like, man, I would watch those for hours, more so
Yeah,
than matches sometimes. I just always enjoyed the promos, and, and not to beat a dead horse, but going back one more time to the Fan Fest for WrestleMania 11, I've always been fascinated by that event, mainly because I didn't go, and I wanted to so bad as a fan. So going back to that event, WrestleMania 11 Fan Fest, why don't you tell us the structure of payment? So, did you have to pay per session? Number one, what was the cost of it? And then I remember seeing a video package after the fact, just like they did for WrestleMania 10, and they showed these photo stations with professional like Tom Buchanan backdrops, smoking guns, Allied Powers, Diesel with the belt, and they're taking these professional photos. Was that an additional cost? Did it come with the ticket? I'd like to hear all about that.
Yeah, the price. I want to say the price was under 50. I know that for sure. They weren't very expensive to go to each session. The professional ops, I don't recall those. I know they had some professional photo ops, but it was with that I had anyways with Polaroids. Like you'd go in and they had it, with a backdrop and all of that with the wrestler, and they'd have someone taking your photo, but it was just Polaroids. The professional one, I don't remember seeing when I was there. But I remember that package as well and going, I didn't know we could do those things,
Yeah.
right? There were some that like they had photo stations where back in the day where they would, cut your head out and put you on different like magazine covers or different images, and they had that, and that cost extra. But most of the stuff in there, the photos and the autographs, that was all included in that low cost of, I want to say it was probably 25-30 bucks
Wow.
for each session, um, to get an autograph with multiple superstars and photos with multiple people just for standing in line.
And
um,
did they have the mid card guys there as well? You mentioned
um,
Ricky Plug and a couple, but were there like guys like Hakushi and Body Donnas and people like that?
So that was like the first time of Chris Candido coming in to the company. He wasn't officially in yet. Sunny was there, but she was as Tamara Murphy Cinch, I think,
Yeah.
doing like the interview parts of it. And that was like staying in the hotel was there too, so everything was right there. So as you were walking by, I can remember seeing Chris Candido because I was a huge Smoky Mountain fan. Seeing him there, and I was like, oh my god, I think he's going to be the mystery partner for Owen, because that was before you knew it was Yoko.
Right.
So you're like, oh, that would be an awesome team, right? Um, and so he was walking around, and Sonny was walking around. The mid carders were more just mingling in, and if you caught them, they were happy to sign, take photos, all that. Chris Candido and Sonny were walking around. I knew who they were from Smoky Mountain, so no one was really bothering them too much. So I went up and got my picture, and when I was getting my picture, Candido stood on his toes, so he was taller than I was in it. And then I have another one with him, just him alone, and you could tell he's much shorter than I was.
Yeah.
So they were always that was what I mean. They were having fun with people that they were interacting with on the floor.
Other than Axxess for WrestleMania 29, the only other one that I ever went to was 28. It was in Miami. I thought it was so well done. Obviously, it was my very first, so it was unbelievable. And like I said, something I've always wanted to attend. Finally got the opportunity, and I remember walking through the main entrance, and it was this long hallway, and it would just go forever, and it had all the superstars pictured, and the music was blasting, and it just felt like a larger than life. Like, wow, I've made it. This is it. And then you empty out into this massive convention center, and you see all the stations and all the cars and all the and it was just everything that you had hoped it would be, and it was such a cool experience. And I remember seeing Legends booths, and there was Howard Finkel and Jerry Briscoe and Harley Race, and you got to meet a lot of those. And it was similar, like you said, you go up in line, and they would change people out, so you didn't know who you were going to get either. There was nobody, no sign, so they would bring the sign after you're waiting in line for like 15-20 minutes, so you could be there for somebody you don't even want to see really, and then you're like, oh man, but you don't want to get out of line at that point. But I remember meeting Beth Phoenix, and she was the women's champion at the time. I remember I met the Bella Twins. I met both of the Usos with Rikishi and Tamina Snuka. There were a lot of cool opportunities. I met Alberto with Ricardo. I met Vicky with Jack Swagger. I met Wade Barrett. I bought the VIP pass to meet Edge and Sheamus, which was a really cool opportunity. And for $50 more, you could also meet Mike Tyson. So I spent the 50 and I got the picture with Mike Tyson. It wasn't an autograph for him, it was just the picture. You're only allowed to get one. I got two. I asked if he would do a stare down. He's like, yeah, no problem. Let's do it, man. And we were just nose to nose, me and Mike Tyson. It was such a good memory. And you had Zack Ryder walking around with his camera, kind of filming things.
Yep.
And the whole Hall of Fame setup. It was still really cool in 2012. I feel like it may not be as, I don't know, as cool now. It might be a little less than that, from
Yeah.
what I've heard anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. At the end of 11, I remember leaving. It was kind of an empty as you're trying to get up the escalators. It was kind of emptied out. I was kind of leaving towards the end. And I remember meeting Vince McMahon coming down the escalator as I'm going up. And he was asking how we
Wow.
enjoy the fan fest and
What a
stuff,
way
which
to
was kind
end
of
it.
a cool thing. Yeah. Yeah.
That's tremendous, man. So, what are some of the other shows that you've gone to live other than the initial 1995 Fan Fest?
Yeah, so I've been to 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, and 20. Um, I
Where
missed
was
19.
14?
14 was Boston.
Yeah, but where was the Fan Fest? I don't remember
Oh,
that.
no Fan Fest. Sorry. I
Oh,
thought you were
okay.
just talking about events. So Fan Fest kind of, they would come and go through the years. Um, so like 12, 12, I told you, it was like you got to go to Disneyland. 13 was kind of unique where you had these different events you would go to as part of the travel club. So they they brought you to like this back alley bar, um, and you'd go in, and it was a fashion show with all the superstars. That's how you get to meet them. Mark Merrill was in the crowd because Sable was up on stage. He was in the crowd after his knee surgery, walking around, and so every one of them was a little different. I think it started back up on 17 Axxess. I think that was the next like actual fan fest one that they had. And those were fun. They had different stuff set up all over the place, and but they were run. It was a little different where, everything was free once you got in there for autographs and stuff, but they were limited on what you could do. It was either you could only get an autograph or you could only get a photo. You couldn't do both at the things. And I would go to all the sessions because if I was traveling that far, I was going to go to all of them. So I would go to all of them, and you'd start to, you know, you'd meet the people that were handling the tables and stuff. And I remember like with Stacy Keebler and Tori Wilson, they were signing together, and it was just autographs and stuff. So there was this one guy that I would see at all these different tables. So we would always chat, and he'd be like, "Oh, let's see what you got this time," because I'd walk around with a binder that thick
Yeah.
with all the pictures and stuff I wanted to get signed. And he told him, he's like, "Hey," he's like, "You got a camera?" I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "All right, get up there." He's like, told Terry and Stacy, he's like, "Hey, he's been here every session, and he's got all these cool things to take a picture with him." So I was able to get a picture with them together
Wow.
back then. So yeah, they were all different, but they were all unique in like the merchandise and stuff. I didn't get too much into at the things. I was more into the autographs and the photos because as it started getting bigger, like the lines were longer and longer. So you were just moving around trying to navigate to each line and figure it out. The first one, it was like a free for all, just trying to figure out where everything was. And you do one and you're like, all right, next session, first place we're going is, to the left. So like that's where they were having the big names. So you would just navigate yourself through and do all that. And again, in that same thing, they would have different things set up. Like one year they had like different busts, like bronze busts of superstars. So they had like Stacy Keebler's legs and Booker T's, hand with the five and
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. So it met a ton of the superstars during that time because they would filter them all out. The mid card, the top of the line guys, everybody would be in and out. It was just the luck of the draw of who you got to meet.
Hmm. So when it comes to promo photos, going back to promos, you know, what are the few promos that maybe you have gotten rid of? Are there a few out there that you did and you look back and you're just like, man, I really should have kept those?
There's only one that I like. I probably should. I wish I would have kept it, but it wasn't anything I could sign because it was a Bulldogs one from '86 with the tag belts. It was the colored version, the 8.5 by 11. I traded that off a few years ago. That's the one that I'm like, that was kind of a cool promo, but there's a point when you're like, well, what could I get that any part of that sign? And I couldn't. So I was like, all right, there were some other ones that I wanted. So I made some trades um, on that one. That's the only one that I really been like, I probably wish I didn't get rid of that. All the other ones that I had, like I said, the Terry Funk and Flash Funk, that one I was like, I wish I would have kept that one. Everything else, promo wise, there's nothing that I regret I got rid of
Yeah.
and wasn't able to get it back.
That Scorpio Terry Funk promo, it's got to be one of the rarest promos, you know what I mean? And that era specifically, those late 90s, you had the new Midnight Express. I mean,
Yeah.
that promo is unbelievably rare. I even remember seeing on eBay, and I didn't win it, and I wish I had it, and I've never seen it again, to the point where nobody has it, not even Mike Ford. It's like it doesn't exist. There's no reference photos of it, and I saw it on eBay, and it was the Truth Commission.
Oh
And they
yeah.
were in their green shirts, and they were lined up, just like the DOA promo where they're lined up. And oh man, it kills me that I didn't get it that day, and I've never seen it since. And
Yeah. I've never seen that one.
yeah, that's another one that was just,
Yeah.
it eluded me. So when it comes to WrestleMania, do you have a favorite WrestleMania of all time?
Um, I do. I love 13. I think 13 was, um, just had everything like Austin and Brett, like Austin before he blew up into the 316 and all that. Like Austin, I liked him in WCW when he was, you know, uh, back then with the Hollywood Blondes. That's where I really like, and all that stuff. So 13 has always been one that I truly like. I can watch it over and over again. I mean, some of the matches weren't fantastic; they were just kind of thrown together and stuff. But having those, that experience and like sitting ringside for that and seeing Legion of Doom come down with Ahmed Johnson and the spikes and all that stuff, like
Yeah.
that is something that I always remember. That one was probably best one for me just because of the environment that it was in and just how it was portrayed. Watching it live was phenomenal.
Yeah. 12 was always one as a kid that I just really wished I was there as far as WrestleMania goes, mainly because of the return of the Warrior and all the hype that went into it. But even if you watch it as a full pay-per-view now, I guess it depends on how you look at it, but I still look at it with nostalgia and such a cool feel. I know a lot of people are like, WrestleMania 12 is not that good, but I don't know. I really enjoyed that one. That plus the Iron Man match.
Yeah, it was, and I think that's part of it. Like live, being there live was a little tougher because they had the Backstreet Brawl.
Hmm.
So it wasn't like it is today where they have the big monitors up. It was they come wheeling out like an AV cart from school.
Right.
Would set four up around the ring. That's how you watch the the backstage brawl until they came out into the arena. So that was a little tough, but yeah, that like all of them were pretty good. You're right. Like if you're there live, it's just a different feel. So, but 13 just outweighs the rest of them. Even 20 was okay for me. It wasn't like that a big event like I would think it would be for 20.
Yeah.
Like some of the matches I wasn't that into, and all of that. So it wasn't like super like I was at 20. It was 13 for me really does it.
I always thought 10 and 14 had a really cool feel.
Yeah.
Those were
Yep.
special.
Yeah. Yeah, that
Obviously,
one was good too. I enjoyed 14, all the way up through. 18 was great for the matches because they had some really good matches on 18,
yeah.
with Hogan and Rock and all of that. So but, I think it's because, I was younger when I went to 13,
Mm.
and then as you get older, you're not just entrenched in it like you were back then. So, yeah.
And then, of course, a couple quick questions here. So, your Mount Rushmore of pro wrestling, if you had to choose any era, who would that be? Top superstars.
Yeah, mine'll be a little different because I go more on like who I enjoy watching all the
Yeah.
time, and like my first fandom, I would go Barry Windham has to be on there for me. I always love watching Barry Windham, no matter where he was. I loved him as a horseman, but I also liked it when he was tag team with Lex, and so just across the eras for me, Barry Windham would have to be on. Austin for sure. Um, um, and like this is going to be a weird one, probably everybody be like who, but Corporal Kirshner,
Oh,
like
yes.
for me as a kid, like he was the first one that I was like he came to our town for a match, and even to this day my father will pick on me when he's talking to my son about what I've done. Like I almost broke my leg because I was trying to get over to the aisle so I could like shake his hand,
Yeah.
and like falling through the chairs and all that stuff. But like he wasn't there long, but for whatever reason, he always captivated me. Um, so what I got? One more.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that's a tough one.
It's always that fourth that's really hard.
Yeah, probably Owen Hart. I always liked Owen Hart. I kind of fell out of like my real passion for the wrestling when he passed away in the ring. Um, and I still watch it here and there, but it wasn't like that wasn't like I need to watch it every week. That it kind of pushed me away. But Owen Hart would be the next one.
And the other question, for your favorite era of pro wrestling, obviously your big fandom started in the late 80s, like you said, but if you had to choose an era, would it be the 80s? Would it be the 90s, early 90s, I should say, new generation? Would it be the Attitude Era? Would it be the territories when you could watch Smoky Mountain?
Yeah, I think it would be like the late '80s. So right around WrestleMania 3 was really hot for me, and like everybody that was on the card, I enjoyed watching, and so even promo collecting wise, like '87 is the the year that I have more promos than any other years.
87 has so many promo photos.
Yeah, yeah.
So many good promo photos, too.
Yeah, yeah, and it's all over, right? And you get the mixture of the WrestleMania 3 stamped ones and all that. So that always that's where I really became a huge fan.
Hmm.
I wish back then NWA and WCW had the promos available like WWF was, because the 80s, late 80s, 90s for me for NWA, WCW, that was it for me. Like that, the NWO and stuff was great, and I enjoyed watching it, but I always go back to like the late 80s, early 90s of like that feel of what they had going on was I enjoyed that a lot.
I have to agree with you with 87 as far as promo photos go. Probably the best year, not only for how many cool shots there were, but how many shots there were. But I feel like 86 might be my favorite overall, because 86 doesn't get enough love, I feel. And there's so many good black and white shots in 86, whether they be tag team shots or solo shots. And I feel like 86 really covered a lot of talent. They got a lot of enhancement talent in there. Just a lot of people that weren't around very long, like a Scott Casey or whoever it may be. So, and I always like those kinds of photos where they're really obscure and tough to get. And Iron Mike Sharp, and I feel like a lot of that was covered in '86, which was cool.
Yeah. Yeah, and once they got to '87, that kind of went away. It was just the superstars that they were pushing those out on. Yeah.
And I always liked the template in '88 of WrestleMania 4, and you would try to get those rare template version promos, like a Killer Bees or a British Bulldogs, the WrestleMania 4 version specifically, or an Ultimate Warrior, or, Brutus Beefcake and Demolition. And some of those, to get that version of it is almost impossible. It really is.
Yeah.
So let's see some. I know you got some on hand here. Let's see some of your favorite items in your collection, and you could just kind of go through them one by one, give everybody a description, maybe a backstory.
Sure. Let me know if you can see these okay. So there we go. So this one, WCW, I only got a handful of WCW ones. This one here for me is unique. I bought this off eBay years ago for, probably pennies to what we got now. Just trying to get it so you can see it well.
Yeah.
But the unique thing on this one came directly from Dennis Knight. So on the back, he pushed this out after he left WCW with all his contact information and all of his pedigrees, so he could send it out to other promotions.
Yep.
To try to get a job. So I was able to get this done through a virtual signing a few years back with Dave Sabeck when he had them on there.
Awesome.
Individually, but yeah, that's one of my more unique ones that I have.
Is that signed by Henry?
Yeah, it's signed by both. I don't know.
Oh, nice. Oh, yeah, I do see it. Yep.
See it. So that one, for whatever reason, I've always held on to that one. Like, it's not like, it's like none of my stuff that I like is for the value, but that one I always found, again, it's that picture on it just kept it for me.
Yeah.
And then this one we talked about too. This is the first one that I have, Caravan Eric, and that's the And my camera's zooming in on me, but um, that's the original ticket stub from the event that I went to,
Wow.
that I got. So yeah, this one's, one that I'll keep for a while. So I go through this one. I posted a few times on the
Oh, yeah.
promo page as well. Um, Trying to get it so you can see the autograph a little bit closer.
What a
But he
great
messed up on
autograph
his
he had
signature.
back then.
Huh?
What a great
Yeah,
autograph he had.
autograph, and he messed it up. He wrote Hunter Hunter,
Oh,
instead of Hunter Hearst Helmsley. So that one, he was it was him, the Godwins, Ahmed Johnson, sitting in a room that with the travel club you got to go meet, and he would the Godwins were messing around and they were joking around and stuff, and he
distracted.
started signing it, and then he got distracted and went back, and I was like, I didn't notice it till after I left. Otherwise, I would have been like, hey, can I get a different one with us?
Oh, that makes it even more unique. And you got the
It
backstory.
is, yeah. And here I was talking about this one, Corporal Kirshner. This is
Uh,
like one of my favorite ones that I got. I got this one at Legends of the Ring, not long before he ended up passing, like maybe a year before he passed.
wow.
I got that. So, um,
Do you remember
and
when
then,
Michael Cole randomly announced that he had passed away before he had passed away?
no,
I remember he
I
got
don't.
a lot of heat for that because Michael
Yeah,
Cole announced that, unfortunately, Corporal Kirchner had passed away. And he didn't pass away. And I think Kirchner even stepped up and said something publicly like, hey, I'm still alive,
yeah.
Pretty crazy.
This one's from '87. This one I like. I started getting this one signed prior to my son being born. Um,
Wow.
Jimmy Hart's signature kind of got messed up a little bit. Can't get the camera right. Kind of got messed up a little bit with the smudge. I don't enjoy paint pens. I like the Sharpie. They kind of, they'll stay a little bit longer. But this one, I started getting, when I knew I was having my son, and both Jim Neidhart and Brett, and I had all of them sign it um, to Jack. So I don't let him mess around with it because he's a teenager and doesn't take care of stuff right
Right.
now. So I'm like, I'll keep it down with all the rest of my stuff.
Yeah.
Uh, so this one here, this one's '88. This is when Austin won the belt.
Oh, yes.
I like this one because I was in the crowd. He was facing me at the time of that promo, um,
Wow.
and I have a picture. I have a picture that I took that's similar to that with Tyson with him as well. So
That's
I always
right.
enjoy that one. Um, this one again, '88. Like I said, Barry Windham. Um, always wanted this promo. Like hunted it for years. I got it probably a year and a half, 2 years ago. Um, through the page, someone had it and want to sell it. It's not in great shape. There's some marks and stuff on it, but they're not easy to come by.
No.
So I snagged that one up, and I'm also not big on the condition if it's a rarer one. I'm happy to get them because they weren't meant to be like a baseball card or anything like that. These were meant to be, used for these things and not to be out. Especially the early years, that was for newspapers and
Yeah.
print ads and people to use them. So, like I heard on the Mike Ford one when he said he cleaned up the grease pen from the Piper, that rare Piper one that he has and stuff.
Yes.
And I almost cried. I'm like, I love having that stuff on a promo. I got a Jimmy Snuka one from a newspaper that has the grease pen on it. I'm like, that's the natural state of what it is.
Yeah.
And I like to keep them that way. And, I got off from you, I bought that Pedro Morales signed one that's all scuffed up and there's
Oh, it's
pieces of the
beautiful,
photo
though.
missing. I love that one because that's what it was meant for. It was meant for a kid to have it, to get signed and to keep it and whatever. And, when you're a kid, you're not taking care of, so you're folding stuff up, putting in your pocket and all that. That one I enjoy a lot.
And to
Uh,
find him on an original promo is almost impossible.
yeah. So I was definitely happy when I got that one, no matter what the condition was in. And then this is one I was talking about
There
earlier
it
with,
is.
just the one. Um, he wasn't available to get it signed that day, but it was uh, definitely one to keep for whatever reason. And this one I'll take out to show you. This is the one I was talking about earlier about Sherry Martel. If you look on the bottom,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, it's a little bit skewed, but it's an original promo. She just cut off the bottom for the signing because she was no longer with the WWE. Uh,
Ah,
yeah, and this one she was good. She was It was definitely a bad hair day for her. She had like this, her hair was frizzed out, like, way out and stuff. And, but that was a good one. And then this one here,
Oh yes.
Donna's, this one I just picked up, you know, this month, off on eBay
Hmm.
for like a really good deal. Like, uh, you know, that one I haven't seen too often. I saw it once and I'm like, I like the Badianas, um, but trying to find a promo with all three of them.
Yeah.
There's another one out there that's tougher to find, but that one I liked and I got it for a real good deal. So I kept that one. And I talked about Stacy earlier. I got
Oh,
this at Axxess 1 year and then Terry the same time there. Both of them were great to meet. This was when they were just coming in from WCW being bought out.
I was going to say that's Stacy's debut promo for
Yep.
WWF.
Yep.
And a
This
lot
is
of
a good
people don't
one.
understand that the WWF, how there's a missing logo.
Yeah.
And they were kind of in the transition at that time with WWF and WWE and World Wrestling Federation Entertainment, so they were kind of in a lull there where they didn't know what to use or couldn't use certain ones.
Yeah. Um, this one here, this one I had for a while, but this one I got at FanFest 9, I believe, right? Is that one?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that one that was me and my son went to that. So she made it out to me. And
That's awesome. And that's her debut promo too.
yeah. And I'm big on the inscriptions and I'm big on having them, made out to me. I'm not looking to sell them. Like, yeah, like you'll see on Facebook, I'll post someone, they're like, why'd you get it personalized? And I'm like, oh, because like it means more to me when I do it and
Yeah.
it brings back that memory. This is a good one too, Eddie.
Oh yeah.
Um, this one was good. This one I got at one of the manias with him when the Radicals first came in.
Wow.
They were one of the things was like open bar type. You get hors d'oeuvres and you get to mingle with the wrestlers, and it was all the Radicals there, and they literally stood with you for like longest time having conversations and
Wow.
all that. So it was like him, Benoit, and Perry Saturn, and I were standing there, just talking about stuff for just not for a long time, a couple
Yeah.
minutes here and there, but it was good.
You don't see
Um,
that one signed as often.
yeah, it's
You
usually
often see
the
his
other one against
debut
the wall.
promo. Yeah.
Yeah, yep. This one we talked about a little bit.
Oh
Is that
yes.
promo signed by Flash and by Terry. Um, so that one's kind of cool. And then the Bulldog.
Hmm. So interesting thing about that Bulldog promo came out recently where somebody online said, you know how you have everybody with their opinions, said, "Oh, that's not a British Bulldog autograph. He doesn't sign like that." But in fact, he did at that time. He actually
Yeah,
did sign like that, and I think he even worked with the Legends of the Ring guys, so they witnessed it, him signing those. But I used to have that very same promo signed, and that's just how he did it at that signing. But
yeah,
you know what kind of hurt that though is British Bulldog's daughter stepped up in the comments, and she also said that oh yeah, that's not how he signs. So now everybody's like, oh, see, I told you so, and it's like,
yeah,
oh man, but that
yeah,
that is real.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Got Stephanie's first.
Such a rare one.
Yep. That was a good one. And then I just brought this one out because I know you're a fan of Howard.
Oh,
It's
it's
the only one
awesome.
I got for Howard.
That's a great one.
Uh, Earthquake. This one I got at Mania 18 Access. He was awesome to meet. He was telling the story about Bobby Heenan making fun of him. This was the only time he really wore the brown because
Oh,
Bobby Heenan said he looked like a giant turd. So he stopped wearing it after that.
what a great promo. I don't think I've ever seen that signed anywhere else.
Yeah, one of the things again where I bring everything that I could when I was going
Yeah,
going to one of these things and just getting everything signed. So that's a good one. And here's the Pillman I was talking about.
I used to
I
have
have two
that.
of these.
That is,
This is the worst one. So like I did like I sold the one. This one has a little smudge, not on the signature, but on the side of it. And when I was selling it, I was like, "Oh, I'll give the better one to the person that was buying it." And
hmm,
I was just now I'm like, man, been a couple car payments
yeah.
if I sold it. This is another good one too for me.
Oh, it's a
The
beautiful.
Austin Cherry dual sign,
Wow.
uh, both at different times, but yeah, this one came out good, and then this one you can't see really well with the color that they use, but Shane Douglas.
That's great too.
from early. I got into doing inscriptions about Royal Rumbles they were in for the year that the promo
That's
came
right.
out.
Yeah.
Like they do like their entrance number and how long they were in.
Hmm.
So I have that on a couple of them. And this one I just got done at
Look at that.
Rhode Island Comic Con November.
That's $1,000 promo unsigned.
Yeah. So really cool. That's my favorite one. I have a bunch of them of his, you know, kind of rarer ones, the pink and all that stuff. But that one is like Ric Flair from NWA for me.
Oh yeah, that's beautiful.
And I'll just throw this one up to Bulldog.
Yeah,
I see, and The Rock
very
from his
nice.
Intercontinental, and then Too Much. I got that one dual signed.
Hmm. Look at
I
that.
wish Scotty Too Hottie would have wrote Scott Taylor. Brian
What?
Christopher signed it both. He just wrote Scotty Too Hottie
Uh,
instead of Scott Taylor on this one. But this one I showed just because I never met him. This is the only one that I've actually seen on like eBay that it's made out to Ron.
wow.
Let me see if it comes back, but
Meant for
uh,
you.
so I picked that up for like cheap because someone's like, it's in a frame. I don't know if it'll come out, but it came out pretty well. I don't have too many dings on it from there, but
Such a rare promo.
yeah. And then Owen,
Ah, yes.
finally get that. I always had like a reprint, half reprint, modified one without the logos and stuff
Yeah.
on it. Snagged that one up. Um, this is my only other WCW one right now.
That's a great one. Johnny B.
I
Bad
got
had a
this.
lot of great ones.
Yeah. So this one, I ended up, like you were saying, your mom sent into WWF to get one signed from you. Back in the day, this time frame, 92, 93, you could go to WCW Towers, write a letter to any wrestler, and you would get a photo back signed by them. Um, an original promo. I had one of Dustin Rhodes in the 5x7 version and all of that. So that was like back in the day, that was a great one. This one I got. So my uncle and my great uncle and great aunt we couldn't get NWA pay-per-views on the cable system that we had, so they let me go to their house. So
Hmm.
on his birthday, he was like in his 80s at that point. Um, I wrote to him and had him write. So he wrote his name and have a happy belated birthday. So he had this hanging up in his house until he passed. So
Wow.
I ended up getting that back when he left. Um, and I talked about this one, so I'll show it. This is the one that I got off from you, Joe, where it's a little dinged up, but I think that's what makes it unique and makes it special. I have the original unsigned that's in better condition, but
Sure.
uh, and this was a good one too. I don't see many out there signed with this, but that one came out good. I always like the unique characters
Yeah.
with it. I think they made everything kind of a little bit more fun going through it. And then this one, the gang has a great signature.
That's beautiful.
Like he does that on all of them, just come out phenomenal, and it
Wow.
looks great on that colored one. And we got the original Stone Cold
Yes.
and the Ringmaster.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
His first two promos.
This one I talked about earlier too. This is the kind that I like, right? Just
Yeah.
like they were together for a very short period of time, and to have a promo of it I think is great. In '87 is when they were making them left and right on anybody and anybody.
Yep.
And this one, just because it's the Macho King, I love the Macho King version of him.
Wow. Is that a facsimile?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
one from like the fan club or something
Yep. That's a
on that.
beautiful shot.
Uh, Here's Lawler's promo. I finally got that one signed.
That's a great one too.
And then Double J. I was always a fan of Double J, even when he was in USWA.
That's his
So,
debut.
yep. And then Brainbusters.
Wow, look at
Got
that.
those signed. Got both of theirs signed fully. So, and again, like I was saying, I got into the Royal Rumble stuff for a while. So, you know, some
Which
of
one
them
do you
go
like
all out.
better?
What's that?
Which one do you like better, the black and white or the color?
I like the color one better.
Yeah. In general, what do you prefer, the colors or the black and whites?
Uh, it depends on what year. So,
Okay.
like in the '80s, I like the color ones better. And then like the early 90s, I like the black and white ones a little bit better. And I'll throw this up just so there's other Persona.
Oh, it's awesome.
And double signed with Slick, and then DiBiase.
Wow.
Then Blue Blazer. Finally got an original one of those. This one is this one you can see. People hole punched them.
Yep.
Not mint, but you know, you take what you can get
Yep.
sometimes so you can fill it in with a nicer version of it. But that one, other than the hole punch, I think corners are crisp, everything else.
It's
and this
funny.
is
There
what I
are
was
some
talking.
that. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say there are some that had hole punches from Steve Taylor's personal collection. He had a little batch, maybe 20 promos, and they all had the 3-ring binder hole punches. And the story behind it is that when he was with the WWF, he gave them to his dad, as he often would. He'd give his mom and dad promos. His mom kind of passed them out like butter, because she didn't know that there was any value, and there really wasn't back then, I guess.
Yep.
So she would give them away to, all kinds of people, and his father kept them all, but he put them in a binder and then did the 3-ring punch, and Steve found them, but it's kind of cool because it's a backstory. It belonged to Steve's family,
Yeah.
and so it doesn't really matter,
Yeah. Andrew went through for some of the rarer ones and started trying to mend them with taking hole punches, trying to match them up with the colors and what they were. I got a couple of those from him too, just because they were more rarer promos that I couldn't find anywhere else.
Yeah.
And I'll take like Undertaker and Paul Bearer, his colored one, all that stuff. This is the one I was talking about. I got Jim Neidhart to sign for my sister. You can see it's kind of.
Oh yeah,
Got some dings and stuff into it, but this one I'll probably end up keeping. Put notes in it for the kids because they probably won't care when I pass of what to do and where to sell it from.
Right.
I have this one of Vince. I like this one of him.
Yeah.
I think this one kind of depicts him as the announcer.
Yep.
That I grew in the Stalker.
I love that promo. I've always had a soft spot for all the oddball gimmicks.
Yeah. Yep. This one, Demolition.
Ah, yes.
I've got quite a few more that I'm hoping to get signed at New England Fan Fest 11. Trying to work out a deal on getting figuring out which ones, because there's a lot of folks that are going that I've met maybe once or not at all, or trying to renew pictures for them. Right. I got one. I think I posted it on Facebook at one point. My father at WrestleMania 14 got a picture with the Headbangers. So he's coming with me and my son to this event.
Wow.
I want to get that one recreated with my dad, like 30 something years later.
Oh, man, that's awesome.
So doing that. And then this one, because of Perfect, he's awesome. I love Perfect. And I got the black and white version as well.
That color is probably my favorite Perfect promo.
Yep. I think like for both of them, it's such a great picture.
Yeah.
And it just pops off that white in that background that they have. Just going through. This is another one I was talking about. I'm not big on condition. Like this Demolition one. See the corners. Someone cut the corners off to fit into like a scrapbook. But it's an original. And another way to tell too, from the 80s, they bend. Like if you keep them out from being flat, they'll just bend automatically no matter how long you keep them in a flat state. They'll come right out.
They'll curl up.
Yeah. And this one's kind of cool. This one, Strike Force, I've got signed different times. When me and my wife were dating, she went to a convention with me. She won't ever go again. But Rick Martel made it out to her. So that one's kind of cool. And then let's see. This one is I only got a handful of the newer promos, but this one, Kurt Hawkins. I ended up, when they first started their podcast, I made a deal with them. I had some figures I was getting rid of that they wanted. So he ended up getting the Razor Ramon Diesel 2-pack from Jack's with the white background. So I ended up trading it. I ended up getting this photo and a signed T-shirt from his losing streak.
Ah, okay. Nice.
For that. So that was kind of cool. And then this one, You don't
Yeah.
see it a whole lot out there. You see the color, the black and white one a little bit more. But I always loved that. I used to have that poster hanging up in my man cave before I got married and had kids. The original poster from that event.
That picture depicts the '80s right there. You know.
It does 100%. This one's just a cool one.
Mm.
Again, like just they weren't around very long, but they were they had quite the fan base when they were. And
Yeah.
when Tom Zank left, it was like, what the heck? And when he teamed up with Tito, I think it worked out well. And this one, I just like, this is my favorite one of the Warrior.
Mm.
Kind of early stages of him. And then last one I'll show is this. I got this one off from you
Oh yes.
that I keep. It has their numbers on the back, which was kind of cool.
Man, that's a
So
fantastic one.
yeah, you don't see, like you said, right? It's the underdogs that stand out more when you're going through them.
Yeah.
To do that stuff. So, yeah, and I'll show this up. I'll just show this up. So that binder that I have in my hand, that's what I carried around every time I went to a session.
Oh wow.
It was loaded with them, and I would just constantly go around. If it was someone that I wanted to meet more than once, I'd get it, and I'd go back around
Right
to
back
get
in.
something signed and all of that. But yeah, those are some of my favorite ones.
Awesome.
I picked one up just this past weekend from a local card shop. It's a facsimile autograph of Matt Hardy, a different year than the original one came out, the P number. So, I'm always looking for the unique ones and all of that. But yeah.
That well done photo before me, it originally came from Mike Ford's personal collection.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and that is the only one that I've ever seen. He's
Yeah.
never seen another either. It's such a
Yeah.
rare promo photo.
Yeah. So yeah. Like I said, I've got over 1,500 going on 16 of just the WWF ones, and I also do some photo files, not many. I was looking for one for Jimmy Corderas, right? He's the referee that's going.
Yeah.
Looking everywhere for a photo for him on like an original, WWF one. I was able to find one with it's a Vader one that's pinning Henry Godwin, and just like like his head is like
Yeah.
in the very top corner of that. So I found that one on eBay last week. So I
That's
ended
one
up
of those
purchasing.
Canadian WWF
Yeah,
promo photos. That's right.
yeah, yeah. So I'm like, well, I'll get that signed when I
Yeah.
go.
It's still him. That's great. Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah,
Now, do you
yeah.
do the
So
encyclopedia too, or no?
I don't do the encyclopedia. I don't do, for autograph wise, I don't do a whole lot other than the pictures now. I'll do posters. Um, so like I've got like old magazine posters, like the big ones, I've got Scott Hall and Kurt Hennig from when they were AWA tag team champions. I had that one. I'll do those. But I don't do a lot outside of that now, just more for storage purposes. I don't like to have a lot of stuff where it's not easy accessible or be able to look at, but I go for what what is easier to store at this point than anything else. Like I got the dumpster's trash can lid and stuff like that, and I'm like, I have no place to put any of that stuff, so I go more with the flat stuff. I did sell one thing that I do regret that's not promo related, but it is as the WCW magazine, Brian Pillman, Hollywood Blonde, Steve Austin poster. I had it signed by Pillman at WrestleMania 13. I ended up selling it, and who I sold it to ended up getting signed by Austin. It's a beautiful piece, completed, but priced me right out of any chance of buying it back right now. But it's that's one that I was like, oh man, I wish I would have gotten that. And same with Road Warriors. I had a dual sign Road Warriors one from WrestleMania 15 for Animal and Hawk, and I got Paul Ellering added to it. I sold that to Andrew. I purchased it back from Andrew, so that one's in my collection. Nice. So there's not many that I've sold that I'm like, I wish I would have kept stuff, but there's a few. But most of the time when I'm selling it, it's because I'm doing stuff with the family, so it's a little bit easier to be like, I shouldn't have done it when we have memories from everything else that we've done. And so that makes it a little bit easier.
And what would you say is that number one promo that you've never owned? It's always eluded you. You've always wanted it. Maybe you'll never get it, but you're still hopeful for.
Yeah, so one I've came close a couple times on it is the Marissa Moselli, Shane McMahon's wife
Oh, Marissa
from
Mazzola.
2000. Yeah, that one I've always tried to get. Like I've come close a couple times, and it always fell through for one reason or the other. That one's one that I would like in it. And also uh, fake diesel. I would like to get
Yeah.
that one in my collection. I got the fake razor. I'd like to get the fake diesel to kind of round it out.
Yeah, Fake Diesel's been at the top of my list. I've never owned it. I finally won it. I was so happy. I got a decent deal on it. I mean, usually you see that go for 800 or more, and I got it for 2 or 300. I was just blown away, and it arrived, and it was a fake.
Oh,
And thankfully, the guy was very understanding. He was just one of those guys on eBay that just didn't know,
yep,
and he immediately refunded me. I sent it back to him. But man, when you think you have it in hand and then you don't, it's just devastating. And so to this day, it's been that one, and it's been Stephanie Wyand.
yeah.
The Stephanie Wyand promo, similar to the Marissa Mazzola, is just like extremely rare. I've owned the Marissa. I sold that one, unfortunately. But the Stephanie Wyand, I've never seen in person. I've only seen a picture of it.
Yep.
And actually, there's another one where I've seen a picture of it. It was the Head Shrinkers, but it was a 94, late 94 version of the Head Shrinkers into 95. So it was Sione and Fatu.
Oh, yeah.
And they had the kind of those, you know how they had the wraps around them? They kind of just, I forgot
Yep.
what you call that, but just such a cool looking promo photo. And I've only seen a picture of it, but you can tell by looking at it that it's a real promo, and it's on somebody's image event. But Mike Ford, none of the OGs have ever actually seen it, so it's out there somewhere. So that would be a
Yeah.
cool one to stumble across.
But that's the exciting part. Like, having these rare ones pop up and like, oh my God, never knew that existed,
Yeah,
and, I never looked at what my collection or anything is like. The end all to what I know about it. Like, so like I'm on eBay all the time. I'm always looking to see what pops up and all that. And what we had last year, we had all these rare ones popping up of like the shadows and all this stuff on eBay's, and you're just like, wow, I can't believe they made promos of those people.
yeah,
What is it, Cheetah Kid
yeah.
yeah, that one.
Cheetah
Yeah,
Kid, yeah.
yeah. It's like just weird ones that you're like, they got promos. And so that's the fun part, right? It's the chase to see what else is out there, and what you can get. For me, it's like what's out there and what can you get for a good deal
Right.
on these things. Of yeah, you can spend thousands of dollars and get everything you want, but it's that chase, and like, can you get it for a good deal, and the story behind it and all that always makes up for it.
And then you have all the people that they're determined. They know, they're pretty much saying like, if you don't see them, they never got a photo. But honestly, I think in just about 99% of the case, I think everybody has a photo. Maybe some of them were literally just a couple made, a handful. They didn't
Yes.
really, because we saw Mantar pop up in 2025. I mean, when do you see the Mantar promo?
Yeah.
And Mantar has always been one in conversation. That oh, how come they never made a Mantar? Well, they did. So probably everybody missing from that era, maybe a Santa Claus or a TL Hopper. They were probably made because
Yeah.
there's a Waylon Mercy out there.
Yeah.
I've seen that. I've never seen it in person. So I'm sure everybody probably has one.
Yeah, back at that time frame is when they were doing the Kodak, so they probably were just printing them as they needed them and not like stocking them,
Right.
because so yeah, it's always amazing on what pops up, and you know
Yeah.
all
Pretty
that
cool.
stuff. It's fun, yeah.
So in closing, what would you say are your top, whether you've owned them or not, your top 5 promo photos of all time?
Uh, I think it's 80. It's 87. Hogan. It's the background when he's wearing the first version of the belt that he had, the almost
Oh,
like the dome one.
yeah.
I can't remember. I think it's that one. That one's the top one for me. It just depicts the '80s
Yeah.
of Hogan. Um, I think um, the Triple H, the blue background with the belt. That one, it's like it just depicts an era of time of what was going on and just wrestling in general for that. That's a good one. I think Heenan Gorilla Monsoon, the colored version for me is a top one. I think that one is that they were the voice for me growing up. So that one is, when them pointing at each other and all that. That's just that was the time, right? Those are the big ones. Austin is all over. I know everybody likes the Austin with the belt against the wall. That's a super rare one.
Yeah.
For me, the Ringmaster tops it for me because that was when he first came in, and like just seeing that transition to Austin 316 from that Ringmaster version of it, sticking the hand to the TV, telling people to touch his hand and all that stuff like that depicted another era for me. And the one I showed earlier too, the Heart Foundation with the triple sign one I had, the colored version, that one is like, I love the Heart Foundation. So that one. Yeah.
The Ringmaster is one of those people that gimmick, people kind of frown upon it. It's terrible. Even Steve does, obviously, but I loved the Ringmaster. When he came in, I was so excited. I knew him as Stunning Steve, obviously, already at that point, but I don't know. I just thought it was such a cool gimmick. I liked him in the white tights and the white boots. I thought it was a cool look. And, he shaved his head, but there was kind of a little bit of peach fuzz. And he was just one of those ring generals that would go in there and get it done. And he just had that almost like a 007 feel, like just a badass, and coming out with DiBiase and with the $1 million belt. I thought it was a really cool fit. And it was for that era, it was fitting,
Yeah. I like I said, I liked him back in WCCW and WCW and all the versions that he was in that. But yeah, those are top ones. Like other than the ones that I mentioned, the fake Diesel and the Marissa one, there's nothing that I'm like itching for.
Yeah.
Outside of that, those are the ones that those are only two, and if I never get them, I'm okay with what I have, and if I do get them, fantastic, because I'm always, like I said, I'm looking for what's the unique ones that I can get signed next,
right?
And that's kind of what I'm looking for now in my collection.
Awesome. Well, Ron, thank you so much for taking the time and being here, and it's been a pleasure chatting.
Yeah, thank you, Joe.
For Ron Lafond, I am Joseph Bruen, and this has been the All Access Entertainment Podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe, leave your comments. We'd love to hear from you, the fans, what you thought of this episode. And we'll see you all next time.